Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Daily Experience. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing quite well myself. Just finished up with the semester. It's awesome. Got done with finals and all that good stuff now. We're just kind of cruising a little bit, appreciating life, going out on walks, working out. You know what it is. How are you doing? 1 year after COVID, how are we feeling? Good. Maybe some people are getting tired. I know for people who are in university or college, this semester's kind of wrapping up now. And then maybe you got summer school, you got all that fun stuff going on. So there's always something to talk about. There's always something to go into. Folks, I spend a lot of time on different social media apps and whatnot. And when a recurring theme that I've seen over and over and over again is this idea of people picking out their, for lack of better words, their ultimate mate. Now, what do I mean when I say that? The amount of videos I've seen of girls and guys, but for example, girls more recently, I've seen something like, I will only date you if you're over 6'2", are making a certain amount of money, have your life in order, have a good job. And at one point you hear that and it's like, good, you should have standards. That's amazing. But on the other hand, it's like, you're asking for certain things, as you should, but what are you offering in return? I hear a lot of people, guys as well, bro, I want a girl who's this and she's that. She doesn't talk to any other guys. She's got a big this, she's got a skinny that. So, all right, well, dog, what do you offer? What do you bring to the table? You're overweight. You don't have a job. You don't got anything going on in your life and you game all day. What is there to like? Why would anybody want to be with you? Why? And I know that sounds super harsh, but again, I would much rather make you dislike me than stand between you and your potential. Stand between who you are and who you could be. I will not stand in front of your growth. And I would rather tell you, like, listen, dude, with these odds, no one's going to want to be with you. And rightfully so. It's like, what do you have to offer? Nothing. So, the first thing that you should do is, if you're going to make these big demands, take a nice long look in the mirror and go, all right, well, what do I have? What am I bringing to the table? And whether for a girl or guy, it's like, well, I've got a nice body. It's like, okay, let's say that's true. What else? What else? If you are not an object, if you are more than just a body, what else do you bring to the table? Are you studying? Do you have a degree? Do you have a job? Do you have a business? What do you have going on in your life right now? What kind of goals are you pursuing? What kind of hobbies do you have? What are you doing that's going to make you attractive to anybody else? If you don't have your life in order, right, and someone's looking over at your life and they see that, they see chaos and they see misery and they see someone who is just prioritizing other things in their life, it's like, dude, how can you begin to form this partnership with someone, right? This romantic partnership where you're going to depend on each other, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, while you don't even have your own life figured out. Right? So before you're out here saying, oh man, I want to, like the young kids will say things like, man, hot girl summer, or like, I want to get wifed up, or I'm looking for a girlfriend, man, or I just want to settle down with one person. It's like, before you start thinking any of that stuff, who are you and what do you bring to the table? Now, I understand. When I communicate in this manner, it sounds very transactionally. It sounds very, all right, well, I'm going to give you this for this, and, I'm going to listen to you, to talk about your feelings, as long as, we can go and watch the fights on the weekends, like, you know what I mean? But what really I'm trying to push this towards is this idea of, listen, you should have standards, and depending on your standards, you shouldn't lower them necessarily, but make sure that you are someone worth attaining. Make sure that you are a person of value, that someone would be genuinely happy to be with you. So a lot of times when a girl says, yeah, I want someone with a 6-figure income, it's like, that's not wrong. That's not a bad thing. We shouldn't be upset at her for knowing what she likes and what she wants. But then, if you're asking for all these things, I hope that you also have some things that someone else wants or someone else is looking for. How's your income? How's your status? How much money are you making? How big is your house? You see what I mean? So no matter what it is, and I know it's a little bit different criteria for men than it is for women, but still, right? Before you start looking at, well, I want a girl who's this and this and this, or I want a guy who's that and that and that, it's like, what do you offer? Why would, this is an interesting exercise. If you don't have anything else to do in your day, and if you're looking to be in a relationship, I want you to grab a piece of paper. I'd like you to grab a pen and a notebook. And at the top, I'm going straight off my head here, so hopefully this turns out well. At the top, I want you to write reasons why I would make a good partner. I think this can be really, really valuable. And I want you to write down all the reasons why you would think that you would be a good partner. And be completely honest. This is just for you. You're not going to show this to anybody. If you're going to comment on your body, great. If you're going to comment on your personality, your work ethic, your ability to be easygoing, your ability to be calm under stress, right? Everything that makes you believe that you would make a good partner. And make a nice long list. And set a goal for yourself. Let's say I want you to write 25 things. Because the moment I say that, what happens is consciously, you're going to think of 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6. But you're going to get to like 7 and then you're like, I can't think of anything. And what you're going to be forced to do is you're going to be forced to tap into your unconscious and bring things out that maybe you've never consciously thought about. So it's not like it didn't exist and you're thinking it into existence and being like, I never knew I was kind. No, you were always kind, but it was just, or whatever that is, it was just deep down. And you have to do a little extra, you got to go a little deeper. You got to go a little deeper into the darkness, into the unknown to pull that out, and you're going to be better because of it. So my recommendation, write down 25 reasons why you think you would make a good partner. And once you've done that, look at your list, because it's not an easy thing to do. Look at your list and think, which ones do you think really stand out to you? Which ones maybe don't stand out to you so much? And, is there a favorite that you have amongst them? And why? Are there any that you write down to surprise you? Now, beside that, you're going to make another column and go, reasons that would, let me see, how would I say this? Things that would make me unattractive to a potential partner. That's a good one. Things that would make me unattractive to a potential partner. Now, unattractive doesn't just mean physical, but anything that you do, any behavior, any sort of attitude that you have. And the same thing again. I want you to write down 25 things or reasons that you think would make you unattractive, that you do or that you have or that you say, that would make you unattractive towards a potential mate or towards a potential partner. This might be your inability to ask for help. You cannot ask for help. You're too stubborn. You're too pride to admit that you don't know something, and then you go and you screw up the job, right? Which is a whole lot worse than just going up and be like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, right? That might be one. Maybe you have an anger problem. Maybe you don't have the most amount of patience. Maybe you freak out easily under stress. Maybe you're a little too easygoing. Maybe you're not that serious. Maybe you're not expressive enough with your emotions. Whatever it is, so write those 25 things down, and you're going, whoa, Daniel, 25. And if you're telling me, Daniel, like, there's nothing wrong, my friend, I want you to look into the mirror, look at yourself, and go, listen, you've got some amazing qualities that make you an incredible person to be around. You absolutely do. But you also have some qualities that make you a nightmare to be around, and that if you were to lose control, you could really hurt somebody, physically or emotionally. And it's better to deal with those things now than pretend that they don't exist and then have them embark later on. Are you a selfish person? Do you tend to put more emphasis on your emotions than on logic in a situation? Do you not have the patience for conversation whenever something gets tough? You just walk out? Right? So it's these little things that we can work on that could not only be just better for us and bring us one step closer towards self-awareness, but also for a future partner, for a future girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, or wife. I think it would just do everybody a huge favor, for you and for the people around you. I can tell you, hey, Sarah, you've got an attitude problem. But it really doesn't matter what I tell you if you don't believe it. You gotta understand your pros as a person and the benefits and the advantages that you have, and also the negatives. Some of the things that maybe you're not too amazing at. Well, guess what? You're human. There are bound to be things that you don't rock at, but that's okay. As long as you are honest about them, as long as you attempt to learn, and even if they don't ever get completely fixed, the sheer attempt to be a better human being in and of itself, in my opinion, requires a pat on the back. And I think if you do that, I think you will be so much better off with finding a partner and ending up in a relationship. So really, again, before you get into that mindset of, well, I really want to be in a relationship, it's like, well, who are you? What are you even ready to be in a relationship? This was a video I made on TikTok. I was like, hey, are you even emotionally ready? Are you ready to handle that much responsibility? How are you at managing your own emotions? If you are not good at managing your own emotions, you probably shouldn't be helping someone else, because that person is going to want to depend on you at times. And if you're always in a rut and you're always out of it, eventually, my friend, patience just runs thin. Even if they say it doesn't, it will build resentment towards you, and you don't want that. You do not want that. It'd be a shame for that to happen. Hooking up is an interesting thing, isn't it? Like hooking up with people, hooking up with strangers. Have you ever hooked up with a stranger? To sleep around with a stranger, that'd be interesting. Now, when you break it down, what is that exactly? Right? You are engaging in an act that is pleasing to both people. You can almost think of it as technically it's like a mutual benefit to both parties involved. That's a very formal way to say it. Could you imagine? Hey man, what did you do last night? Well, you could say I was in a partnership that involved both the parties receiving benefits over about a 3 to 7 minute period. In all seriousness, you engage in an act with someone, right, more for pleasure. Well, obviously for pleasure, and maybe they look great, and maybe they think that you look great, and booyah, you're off to the races, right? But then you always have things to consider, like STIs, STDs, and all that fun stuff. So you got to be careful, and there's always protection to use. Folks, I cannot tell you. It's interesting, right? Because TikTok is seen as like a younger app, and you'd be right to say that. I read somewhere that the majority of the population on that app is under the age of 30. With that being said, I've seen a lot of comments on posts that are about like, oh, like, where's your ex-boyfriend now? Or, what are you up to? Or what happened to that guy who you thought was perfect? And there's a lot of females in the comments talking about, oh, he left, but I'm super happy here with my 2 sons. Yeah, the dad's not in the picture anymore, but I've got this beautiful boy and I'm super happy. And then when you press on the profile, you see that, right? You see a woman with 1 child or with 2 children, but there's no father in the picture. And it's so heartbreaking, right? Because my immediate thought when I see that is it's agency, right? It's personal agency. I'm a psychology student for a reason. There's a reason I'm not a sociology student. I want to focus on the individual, right? And folks, when you have sex, or if you have unprotected sex with a stranger, you're flirting with danger. STIs, STDs, unwanted pregnancies. Like, yikes, man. That stuff is, like, I'm not saying, who am I to tell you how to live your life? Get a piercing, don't get a piercing, get a tattoo, don't get a tattoo, sleep with strangers, don't sleep with strangers. But it's just one of those things, man, where you're like, you are flirting with danger. And if that's what you choose to do, so be it. But there are consequences. And some of them, like AIDS, there is no cure. So it becomes tough. Folks, I don't know about you, and even knowing, because I've met 2 different types of people, right? I know the type of person who's like, Daniel, like, I don't want to be with someone who slept around with a bunch of random people. Like, I do not find that attractive. That is a huge turnoff. If I know you've slept with 10, 15 people, I find that disgusting. I've met those types of people. I've also met the type that say, hey man, listen, I've slept with my fair share of people. You slept with your fair share of people. I mean, as long as you're clean, I'm clean, I got no problem, right? What your past sexual history is none of my concern as long as you're clean. I will not judge you, because who am I to judge you? That's interesting, isn't it? Those are 2 completely different mindsets to this matter. What's yours? Well, what is your mindset? If you have a partner, or if you're thinking of, or hypothetically if you had a partner, would you want to know how many people they've been with? How many people they've slept with? If the answer is yes, I'm curious as to why. Maybe it'll help you sleep at night. But what if that's a bigger number than you imagined? If your answer is no, that's also interesting. I guess you're fine with whatever number that is. Maybe you're just more accepting of the fact that what that person did in the past was the past and now is the present. When I was younger, when I was 14, 15, and in class they show you, right, they don't show you, I mean, sometimes they show you, they definitely show you with diagrams, what a pregnancy is like, right, in stages, or, what sex looks like and how, whatever those young kids, 12, 13, 14-year-old boys and girls think it is, and then they get told by their educators, by the teachers, hey, this is what it actually is. My first thought as a young man at the age of 14, 15 was like, oh, well, man, I guess people must get abortions all the time then. You just sleep around with as many people as you want, hope you don't get STI or STDs, and then, as long as you use protection, you're safe from everything, right? But in case something went wrong and you found that someone is pregnant, you could be like, well, no problem. You could just get an abortion. You can get one once, twice, 3 times, 14, 27 times. Now, it's really easy to say on the outside. But when you study biology and when you study pregnancy and the cycle, it becomes a little bit more complex than that. So first of all, right, again, STIs and STDs, those are not, throwaway things. That's not, oh, bro, you'll get some acne, or, oh, man, it's, it'll be a little, it's serious stuff, folks. But also the pregnancy portion, it's like, this goes to the whole, what was it? I believe it's called the pro-life or pro-choice debate. I believe that's what the young people are calling it. And the idea is this, right? If you have someone who's pregnant, there's a lot of people who are for abortion and go, man, as long as it's inside of a person, that is not a baby, you can, they don't even look at it as killing, because it's not, they don't look at it as a living human being. Then you have the other side that goes, well, as soon as there's conception and you have a fetus in the mother's womb, that is a human being. And abortion means that you're killing that child, that you are murdering a child. 2 years ago, I'm in my biology class. I put up my hand and I ask a prof, because this is something that I was very interested in. And the question with respect to when is a human being is the most complex part that no one seems to be able to answer. If I ask you and I go, hey man, if a person is 1 month pregnant, could they still get an abortion? You might say, sure. I'd say, what is that based on? You'd say, well, they're probably still small and they haven't developed, but you wouldn't be able to tell me what, unless you're a biologist or you study this stuff or you've done your own research. What if I say, hey man, how about you're 8 months pregnant? Can you get an abortion? And if you say no, I want to know why. Well, because the kid's more developed. What's for you? What is the major change between what happened at month 1 and at month 8? Like, what is the symbol that you're like, okay, you are now alive? It's not a switch. There's a certain point where organs develop. There's a certain point where the brain develops. There's a certain point where you start to see the fingers and the hands and the legs. So at what point is that switch for you? And if you say, hey man, I'm pro-choice or I'm just pro-life, it's like, I would debate that. I've known people who are super hardcore pro-choice who say, hey man, obviously I'll get an abortion. Abortions are the only ways to go, especially my feminine friends, and we've gotten into conversations and I'll say things like, wow, like interesting, but you would agree that abortion is like killing, the child or the fetus. And they go, well, what if someone's been sexually assaulted by 10 people? Do you think they should keep the baby? Do you see how it becomes problematic, right? And hard, and it's complex. To some people, it doesn't seem complex at all. To that same person, when I said, hey, what do you think of getting an abortion 3 weeks in? They said, great. But when I said, what do you think of getting an abortion 8 months in? All of a sudden, they changed their answer. They said, no, 8 months isn't cool. I said, well, obviously. I said, oh, so you're only pro-choice up until 8 months. Then you become pro-life. So you switch your stance depending on the duration. Why? Out of curiosity, not to sound like a smartass, but I want to know why. I was in biology class. I put up my hand and I asked the prof, I said, at what point, because this is personally for me that I think it's quite important to know during a fetus's development. I said, at what point will the fetus have a heartbeat while it is in the mother's womb? At what point will this thing that is inside the mother that depends on the mother to eat and take care of herself have its own beating heart, which will help circulate all the blood to all the other organs and body? Do you know what my professor said? As early as 6 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks. That is a month and a half to 2 months. After 2 months, you call it whatever you will, but that thing inside of you has a heartbeat of its own, and it's beating. And again, you can call abortion whatever, that's not a human being. You got to go in there and you got to put a stop to a beating heart. I'm not saying, hey, X is the right answer. I'm just saying, folks, this is more complex than we make it out to be if you actually learn about it. When I was 14, 15, I didn't study biology. I didn't study much about the womb. It's easy for me to sit back and go, yeah, you can just get abortions whenever. You can just get 15 abortions. But like, dude, that is no small task, man. Ignorance is bliss. Well, of course, if you don't know what you're doing, Now, I'm not pro-choice and I'm not pro-life. I think they're both garbage. I am pro-protection. I am pro-abstinence. I am pro just do whatever is necessary to not become pregnant. And if that means don't have sex, don't have sex. If that means every time you're going to have sex, use protection, use protection. The pill, condom, whatever you want to do. I am pro-protection. If that's a thing, I don't know, I may have just made it up. But just be careful out there. Because at the end of the day, it's like, man, I don't want to sound like a jerk here, but it's like, how do you become a single mother? You didn't do it on your own. And again, there are exceptions. There are sexual assault cases, 100%, and I don't want to deny that. But for a person who chose to engage in these sexual acts, and now you have a child, and you chose to keep them, and now you're a 22-year-old with a baby, and the dad walked out, because he's also a 22-year-old, and he doesn't want to be a dad, and just wants to chase his degree or go traveling or do other things that do not involve being a father right now. It's like, well, we can talk about the deadbeat dad and what a loser and he bounced, but you chose to engage in these acts. You chose to play the game. You just don't like your hand. You just got a bad hand, but you sat down at the table, And I don't mean to rub it into anyone's face and just go, listen, you made a decision to engage in this act. This is your consequence now. Let's live with it. Let's do the best we can. But if we can, let's not start blaming anyone else. Let's not start pointing fingers and saying how unlucky I am and how, he was a piece of garbage. And I'm sure that's true, but hey, had you not engaged, you wouldn't be here right now. That's on you. That's 100% on you. It is. It's one of those things where I think you got to decide for yourself. And if that gamble is worth taking, I'm happy for you. Do whatever makes you happy. Who am I to tell you what you should and shouldn't do with your body or who you should and shouldn't sleep with? Do whatever you want to do. But when you do it, don't come back to me complaining about the consequences. You knew what was at stake. You played the game anyways. You played the game anyways. You don't like how it turned out? Well, too bad. It has to have consequences. You can't go into a game but then deny the result because you don't like the outcome. I'm only going to play this game, but only if I end up winning. If I don't end up winning, then it sucks. It's like, well, it doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. So it's an interesting thing, man. Hooking up with strangers or, hooking up with multiple people. It's dangerous, dude. It can be risky. It can be risky. Even if you use protection. It's like, all right, man, you sleep with 150 people, right? All it takes is one slip up, and that's game. But you got to make that decision for yourself and go, well, what are you willing to engage in? And as long as you look yourself in the mirror and go, you know what, man, I chose to do this, and I'm going to stick by my decision, that's all I'm saying. That is all I'm saying. But again, going back to the whole pregnancy thing, it's like, if you have a beating heart at a month and a half, at 6 weeks in, at 8 weeks in, guys, Jesus, man. So please, with that knowledge in mind, and also please do some of your own research on pregnancies and STDs and STIs. Like, that stuff is a lot more prevalent than we think it is. Like, it happens a lot more often. Right? The dude who got an STD and STI is not going to put his hands up and go, guys, guess what? I got an STD. Right? It's not something that you announce, It goes back to knowing what you want and knowing who you are, right? If you have morals, if you got principles, you're saying, okay, these are some things that I will do. These are some things that I will not do based on who I am. And if the environment does not matter, who's surrounding me does not matter, I stick to these principles because these are who I am. These are what I live by. Oh, this is a weird place to take it, but I'm going to take it. And if you get offended, I really don't care. A lot of people are religious because they need something to help them live a good life and be a good person. They cling on to religion because they don't want to end up in hell or a terrible place. That's why they're a good person. I am a good person for the sake of being a good person. Not because of following rules. Not because I don't want to end up in a certain place. I do it for the sake of doing it. Not out of fear of punishment or pain. I do it because it makes me feel good. So, whatever you're going to engage in, my recommendation, again, this is just my opinion, but what the hell do I know? I don't like leaning on things. I don't like leaning on the establishment or on institutes or on other laws or religions to tell me what to do to be a good person. No. I'm not going to be a good person for you in order to avoid X, in order to avoid whatever. I will abide by my own morals and my own principles in life that have told me how to walk, how to talk, and how to carry myself in this society. And as long as everything that I do and all my behaviors are within that circle, we got no problem here. The moment you step outside of your circle in psychology, we call it cognitive dissonance. There's a problem between who you are and who you think you are. And when that happens, your mind's going to try to change something. It's either going to try, the first thing it's going to do is going to try to change the situation so it matches who you are. So that would be like, let's say, I don't drink at all. I go out, I get absolutely wasted. I start thinking to myself the next day, I don't drink. Why did I do that? Now, to protect my ego and my identity, what I'm going to do unconsciously is I justify the situation. And I go, well, man, it was my buddy's last night. He was going to leave. I wasn't going to see him for a year. It was a celebration. I never, get wasted. This is once a year. It's not going to do anything to my health. I took a taxi, right? So, and what I end up doing is I form it in a way where it fits into my morals and my principles, and it keeps me on top, so I'm still good. But again, I think that's where it goes back to. I think a lot of life is how do you carry yourself? And when you start looking at life through that lens, that's why you make the decisions that you do. And I think, unfortunately, for a lot of people, they haven't developed those morals or those principles yet. Just things that they will not do and things that they will fight for, tooth and nail, or things that they do not tolerate. And I think, obviously, these do change, and I think they become modified, and maybe some things that you're really passionate on, you're not that passionate about a couple years after, of course. But I definitely think, especially, man, after 15 and on, man, it was adolescent development. Adolescence is a very interesting place. And I took a course on adolescence, and we were talking about, the kind of beauty of these cognitive functions, right? Where you start looking at life in a different way, and you start figuring out, man, life's a lot more complex than I thought it was. And it's from that 12 to 13 to kind of 19, 20 years old age where, you start to look at life differently, and you start to really put your values and your morals in place, and your cognitive mind changes from, I'm not going to steal because mom gets mad, to I'm not going to steal because it's morally wrong, because it's the wrong thing to do, because I would feel bad, because I don't want to hurt someone. You know what I mean? So you really start looking at life differently. And I think, man, a person without morals and principles, they scare me a little bit. A person who has this kind of money mindset, it's like, dude, it's all about the zeros. That worries me. That you're willing to bend over backwards for money. That you're willing to stab your brother for money. That you're willing to kill someone for money. Both figuratively and literally. But a man of morals and principles, it doesn't matter how many zeros are on that check. You hold yourself accountable. And it helps you sleep at night because you're honest with yourself. You have to have morals and principles, man. In life, growing up, doing whatever you're doing. You have to have a bar that you measure yourself at. If not, it's like, well, how do you know if you're being a good person? How do you know if you're being true to yourself and true to everything that you could be? And I think that you see the difference in morals with people when you talk about things like hooking up with strangers, right? Or going out with people. The very last thing I'd want to say on this topic is just, don't worry about writing this down, but keep in your mind, what are certain things that you live by? What are certain rules or ideologies? Is it, I will do kindness unto others whenever I can? Is it, I will always try to be the bigger person? Is it, I will not tolerate disrespect? Right? Really keep these things in your mind, because what happens is you consciously say them, you plant them, And then unconsciously, they will arise in different situations. So if you say to yourself, I will not tolerate disrespect, and you feel as if you're in a store where someone is upselling you and someone is disrespecting your integrity, all of a sudden from your unconscious, that idea will shoot up into your consciousness that says, this dude's out of his freaking mind. Let me tell him what I'm thinking about, right? And that's where it comes from. So I would highly recommend it, folks. Think about your morals and principles. As a human being, what are the things that you will not do, that you do not tolerate from a friend, from a romantic partner, in a like employee supervisor relationship? And what are things that you live for? What are things that you will happily do? What are things that make you proud of who you are? They can be quotes, they can be sayings. Oh man, there was a, what do they call these? It's like, is it like I don't want to say like an affirmation board, because it's not like, I hope that good will come to me. No. It's like these laws that you stand by. It's damn near like the 10 Commandments, like a religious thing. But it's not religious at all. It's just your own personal, rules of life. What are your rules of life? What are your laws of life? And definitely keep those at the forefront of your consciousness, because they will come up. Folks, thank you so much for listening. If you're listening on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, I really, really appreciate you. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you all so much. I appreciate your support unbelievably. I wish you a safe and amazing day. And as always, take care of yourselves and keep going strong. Keep working out, keep eating healthy, taking your vitamins and all that good stuff. Goodbye, my friends. Eat your vitamins, say your prayers, because Hulkamania's gonna run wild on you.